Well, buried in chapter 19 in Leviticus is Jesus' second greatest commandment and Paul's summary of the law. Verse 18 of chapter 19 is just one little part of the verse. Love your neighbour as yourself. But it's followed by this little refrain that keeps coming up through the chapter. I am the Lord. And if you go through the chapter and look carefully, you will see that again and again and again. It starts in verse 1, be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. Then verse 3, I am the Lord your God. Verse 4, I am the Lord your God. Verse 10, verse 12, verse 14. And so it goes on. This refrain, I am the Lord. And that statement is shorthand for I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. You shall have no other gods but me. We know that from Exodus 20, the giving of the Ten Commandments. And the name the Lord is the name that that God revealed to Moses in the context of him saying, I am going to rescue the people of Israel out of Egypt and take them into their own land. And by doing that, he was saying, you shall then know that I am the Lord. And the Egyptians, he says, will know that I am the Lord. So being the Lord, saying I am the Lord, is all bound up with being the rescuing God of the Exodus. And so the logic is, because I am the Lord and I am the God who's rescued you and redeemed you and given you new life and the chance of a fresh start, therefore be different from the other nations around you. That's what the holiness for God's people is about. God is holy, he is different. We are to be holy. His people are to be holy and different from the nations around us. For God's people then, we've seen how they were not to be like the other nations in chapter 18, and he comes back to that in chapter 20. Chapter 19 is more positive. Here are the things you are to do about the way that you treat each other positively. Be different in how you treat one another. Be different in how you treat the vulnerable. Verses 9 and 10. Be different in how you act not to endanger the life of others around you. So verse 16, do not do anything that endangers your neighbour's life. Feels particularly resonant at this time. And the New Testament, of course, picks up this concept of holiness for God's people now that Jesus has come. And 1 Peter talks about, because God has done this for you, be holy, because that's what he says. You are a holy nation, and therefore you are to live differently from the world around you. And God willing, we're going to be looking at 1 Peter in the 10:30 service after Easter. Now, being different, therefore, and loving one another, loving our neighbours ourselves, that's something we need to keep doing in our own families or our own households or with those around us if we are living with others. And we may have found by now that gets challenging. Of course it does, as we're all cooped up. And the key is, of course, to keep going back to how God has treated us. That's what he tells the people to do here. I am the Lord. I've rescued you. You have a new identity, therefore go and love those around you. Now, we are seeing at the moment in our culture that neighbourliness has kind of broken out in a new way, considerateness, which is wonderful, isn't it? I suspect, I don't know, maybe I'm just being cynical, but I suspect that it's not going to last forever. And we're already seeing people taking advantage of others and fraudsters and people getting mugged around hospitals and horrible things like that. But even in the wider society, how long can it last for us to be neighbourly without drawing our resources to do that from the God who first has loved us? I think Christians have a particular role to keep holding out who we are. We are the redeemed people of God. We are loved by God. And therefore, we have the resources to go on loving one another even when others have given up. And that's going to be the thing to aim for in the coming weeks and months, so that those around us and the wider world might know his love for us as well.